feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Monday morning. It's February 10th, before the Wolves play the Cleveland Cavaliers this evening. And much like in their win against Portland on Saturday, the Wolves will be some version of shorthanded tonight against the Cavs. They did win that game against the Blazers 114-98, playing without Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, Anthony Edwards, and Mike Conley. It's possible Mike Conley and Anthony Edwards play in Cleveland tonight. They're both listed as questionable, though getting a look at Mike Conley's finger, that was very, not straight from his dislocation.
And I don't get the sense it's gotten any better.
I saw questionable on that injury report. I was like, I don't know about that. So more of the story is the Wolves are in this chapter of the season where they're playing shorthanded. The first 40 games this season, very, very healthy team. Even last season, very, very healthy team. And we were talking about this all along of somebody's going to get hurt and then Rob Dillingham will play more. This guy will get an opportunity. But I'm joined by Jace Frederick, Wolves beat writer from the Pioneer Press. Jace, what's been most interesting to me about the Wolves being a little bit shorthanded, kind of whatever direction they are shorthanded, is it's giving more opportunity to Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid to, kind of spread their wings, show that they can do more in a different role, or they can almost do different things in a bigger role when they're the main guys. Saturday night against Portland, they were, the leading scorers. The offense largely ran through the two of them. Jaden had 30, Naz had 23. I think 16 of those came in the second half. I'll let you choose either one of those. I want to talk about both those guys, but what have you just kind of thought about what Naz and or Jaden have shown in this bigger opportunity that they have?
Yeah, you're right. It was like somebody's going to get hurt, and then everybody got hurt. All at once, it was like they saved them up, and now they're like, all right, let's burn them now. For me, both have been impressive. I'd start with Naz, just because I think what he did Saturday was something that I don't know if I thought he could do, or I wasn't sure if he was that type of player now or yet, or on his way to being that. I don't know, but it's just you'd always watch Naz and the production would be oh, nice, pick and pop three, off the catch, drive to the bucket, finish, slip off a screen, head down to the post, they switched it, mismatch down there, just
second
good,
guy stuff, secondary.
Yeah, totally. Yep. The resulter, the finisher of an action, and not necessarily the creator of the action, not necessarily the guy who's drawing the attention and has the gravity, but taking advantage of others and really good at that. And that is incredibly valuable within an offense. And usually his points, they always talk to barometer of this, barometer of that. If Naz was going off, the offense is probably doing something. But this game, he hadn't had the chance, so we really didn't know. But it was Portland was okay, how are we gonna take this Naz Reid guy out of the game? And it was let's switch everything. So all these easy actions they usually get him looks he's going to be covered at all times. Let's deny him the ball on the perimeter. That should be pretty easy. He's 6'9", 6'10", whatever. We won't let him catch it, especially out there. It's not he's going to go down in the post. And that worked for a half, especially after his hot start. And then they really it was okay, let's take him out. But then it was any which way in which he wanted to get the ball. I liked the way Chris Finch said it of Naz was going to get the ball. He was adamant, basically, he was going to find a way to get the ball. And it does require a relentless nature to you of I'm going to keep moving at all times in the possession. And other times being and I think the Wolves kind of set this up, I'm bringing the ball up the court. Right. And then when he gets the ball, the things he was able to do with them were, it was insane.
The step backs were nuts. Step backs.
It was a lot of, you could talk about the step back threes were insane. The side step threes were insane, off the bounce stuff. And then there were times where he was attacking the rim, off of that, of I'm going to
do that's the more surprising one.
Go. Yeah.
To me is we knew Naz had the pop game, and we've seen the footwork of the step back stuff. I've always wondered with Naz if the next level, if we do assume the 40+% 3-point shooting off the move to be real, which I do at this point, what can it be off of that getting to the basket? Because sometimes he's a little tumbly, going to the basket, fumbles the ball on strips and stuff like that.
A lot of control.
Yeah. But to see both of those in tandem and have maybe have the opportunity to go to it again and again and again. I thought it was awesome. And as someone who's just, I know you're in this book, in this camp too, of enjoying this Naz Reid story. It was like a cool chapter that we hadn't opened up yet. And just again, being able to, sorry, I'm cutting you off, but be able to see him doing more and to be able to do it like right away. It's like, here's the game, Naz. Here's your opportunity to do more. And kind of same with Jaden recently, but focus on Naz. Like, and he does it when he gets these bigger opportunities. He's like, oh, you don't think I have this, or you don't think I can? And he just does consistently from going back 5 years. There's more and more and more. Like, the more layers you peel back. Yeah. Sorry. Awesome.
It's like, how deep is that bag? Because like I mean, it really was just like, like you snapped your fingers. It's like, this is what we need. He's like, I got it. And I think the more impressive thing to me was like, you talked about the game, you need it. Like, it's the first time in like the NBA that we've seen a team be like, let's focus on taking Naz Reid out of the game. And like, he just didn't let it happen. By the second half, he was like, I'm just going to move. I'm going to come off more stuff. I'm going to like, you're going to deny me. Okay. I'm going to like, just move a little bit and
literally
get myself back open.
Him. Yeah, top blocking him. That doesn't happen to centers.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I don't know. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen to that many players in the NBA, frankly. Like, and those are the times where oftentimes we would see Ant be like, I'm going to go stand in the corner. I'm going to go stand up by half court. We'll play 4-on-4, whatever. And Naz is like, I'm going to get open. And it's just like the relentless moving. It's the ways in which he's been good his whole career of like, sees the floor, sees the offense, understands like how to generate things like loosely and freely. Like, he kind of used those same principles to get himself going. And it was really cool to see, because it was all these things where like, and Ant sees more defensive attention. It's apples and oranges in terms of like trying to take somebody out of the game versus like, we're committing multiple guys and this is literally all we care about. But it is like the things where be like, Ant, you have to do this, you got to do this. This is how you get open. And then you watch Naz, it's like, here it comes. And he's like, I'm doing these things. Like, it's going to take more than that to take me out of the game. I had this weird, this is going to get like, who
are you about to do a Naz player comp? Because I literally have that written down.
Yeah, but mine's going to be like, this sounds stupid. This is ridiculous. Okay. And it's true. And I'm not saying he's this player at all. I don't know if I've ever seen a big guy who actually plays and looks a little bit like Steph Curry. Not in terms of like,
no, I know what you mean. Like, like stylistically,
stylistically, yeah. Like, looks like is probably the closest I've seen to somebody like a big who plays like Steph Curry. Like, in terms of like, he can get the ball, like can play in nonstop movement, like can get the ball, can score in that way, has like the handle of that. Like, I honestly like, there's, he's never going to be Steph Curry, obviously, but like in terms of somebody who's 6'9", 6'10", who actually kind of plays like that, kind of insane, I think.
No, I like it because we do this thing all the time of like, oh, this generation of kids is playing the Steph Curry way, they're jacking all the threes and stuff like that. But it actually, what the Steph Curry thing is in the younger generation is it's like or his game in the NBA is not only just shooting threes, it's doing them and doing them quickly and being able to do them off the catch and off the bounce. And you're like stepping back this way and that way and all these different. And Naz is a younger, I mean, he's 25, like he did in a way kind of come up in, this part of the basketball world where it wasn't like you're a center, even from the beginning when we interviewed him, he's like, this is just, I've been the tallest player on my team. I've never really been a center on my team before. And it's cool. It's like he is forming into something at the big, like stylistically at the big position that we haven't seen before. I was going through this like yesterday. I go through it like that meticulously, and maybe I'm missing somebody, but I was like, who is the best player comp for Naz? Joe Minus, you're gonna laugh because it's the opposite of Steph Curry. I said Brook Lopez, but like with no speed, like Naz with no speed is Brook Lopez, because he'll like kind of do like the slow lumbering like to the basket sort of things, but it's the opposite of what it's a terrible representation because there's no handle. There's just very few players who can shoot that many threes, take them off the dribble, and also have an ability to like get to the basket and finish over and or through people. I'm literally like going but not through like brute force, like that's just not. That's why Brook Lopez is a terrible one. To be clear, that's like a terrible example. But like go through it and do it. Like I don't know, Chet, right? Like
I just don't think there have been many bigs who play like this.
I agree.
Like that just with who actually like play within like a rhythm and flow of an offense. Like, we'd always be like, oh, Cat, the shooter, blah, blah, blah. It's like that was a lot of like set shooting and whatnot. Like the step backs, like, yes, he hit a few of them and you mentioned them and like, hey, more of them, blah, blah, blah. But like they were a little clunkier, like that looked more like if a Brook Lopez was going to shoot a step back, which he has at times, it looked more like when Cat does it. Where when Naz does it, it's like, Jesus, like the footwork is good.
Well, Brook Lopez and Cat are way stronger than Naz are, and it's why they could be like actual post-up players and have been really good post-up players in the NBA.
But they're not running actions for them, coming on pin down screens and whatnot.
No, Cat never. I mean, or so rarely. Like I remember.
And why would you?
Sometimes because like out of timeout plays or something for Cat to like come off of a pin down.
Finch
but never
do that
in the
too.
flow.
Sometimes on the top of the court, like coming around a screen that you could, catch and shoot or curl or whatever. They did that sometimes. But when Naz, like you could literally run Naz around the floor. Like it comes down to stamina at some point, but like you get him do a million things, come off a million screens in a possession.
But that's the thing; he's in good shape,
right? I'm just saying, if you did that all game, every game, you're like, this is our, like that's the annual Steph Curry. Is he the only person who can play that way for an entire game? Ant would say yes. But that, I mean, just watching those things that he could do is like, I just really do like that was really special. Like the things that he was doing at his size, and just it looking so natural and smooth and like adjusting to like that was, like, hey, here's your chance to do these things. And he just delivered. And then it was just like, well, what else can he do? And I actually give credit to the coaching staff for being like, here's who we got tonight. Here's our personnel. Let's lean into it. And they certainly did. And yeah, I don't know. I was almost like, even like watching it live was like, wow. Watching back the clips was like, dear Lord, like I thought that shot was special, but like, my God, it kind of looks undefendable in a lot of ways.
And if the shot is going in at that clip and it isn't like disruptive for him to be like, I'm driving to the elbow and I can take these 2 huge steps back and get behind the line. I mean, and still hit that 3 at a high clip. It just, I've always wondered, dating back years, like what would it look like more out of Naz Reid, or if there's just more offensive opportunity there. He's obviously not the defensive player Brook Lopez is, or in many ways he is undersized at center. I don't even think he is a center. I think he's a forward. But within his skill set at the 4/5, if you want to call him that, it's just a completely unique, and almost kind of makes you be like, I kind of want to see this team play for a little bit. Like, what can he do over like 6 games in this type of role? Jaden, we have seen in this bigger role for the like a more 4 or 5 games, and we've seen the higher point totals, higher rebound totals, higher activity, higher usage, and him doing more and being like, actually, if you let me kind of like go off the dribble a couple more times a game, like I can get up and shoot my mid-range shot over just about everybody. And he's hitting those at a high clip. He's been a force on the offensive glass, just like more physical offensively, to the point where he's like plowing through people to go finish there. I mean, for Jaden, I wouldn't say it's as flashy as Naz, but to me, it's still a huge signal of like an expansion of the game that we thought was in there, but didn't know what it like would look like in practice. And it wasn't just for him. It wasn't just the Blazers game. It's been this last, largely since Julius's, was that 5 games ago, Julius has been out. Yeah, like Jaden has instantly expanded to fit the space of the role as well. It's really cool to see both of them doing that.
Yeah, like so Jaden had 20. How many did he have against the Mavericks? They won by 1 in that game. I don't remember. Anyway, 27. Okay, looked up. So he had 30 on Saturday, and he had 27 against the Mavericks last month. And he made 1 3 against the Mavericks, and he took 1 3 against Portland. Like it used to be like, okay, Jaden offensively, like, can you shoot this percentage to be a valuable offensive player? Can you be 35, 36%? Because then he can play with you on the court. And it's below that. It's like, hey, it's really hard. But I just feel like his mindset has definitely changed on that end. We can talk about opportunity all we want, and that's certainly a factor in it. But like, he got the ball and was not going to allow himself to be denied his spots, which is what the best scorers in the NBA do. I'm going to get to this spot on the court. And we all know for Jaden, it's around the elbow. It's the free throw line, that mid-range spot. Or if he can get to the rim, great. If you're not going to
dunk,
stop. Right. A dunk, layup, whatever. And he just is like, I'm getting to that spot on the court. I'm getting to the middle, or I'm going baseline. Whatever you give me between those two, I'm going past you and getting there. And I'm going to finish there. And like what he shot on twos lately, insane. That's his clear comfort of, I know I can score from here or here, and I'm going to get there, and you're not going to dictate the shots I'm getting. You can dictate whether I get here or here, but those are the two spots I'm getting to.
It's for that to happen and be true. I think like his handle and control of his handle has had to improve, and I think it has. And kind of because if you're starting from the corner there and you're going through to be able to get there, you need to have strength, handle, and the ability to rise up. And I mean, I would have been like last year, like maybe none of those,
Yeah.
So again, it's being able to add practical basketball skills to the role that you already have that is probably too small for you, for both Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid and Hasman. I mean, we get why the role is what it is. It's like you play with Anthony Edwards, you played with, you played with Cat last season. Mike runs the point. Like, there's not going to be a lot of and it doesn't make sense, and it probably won't make a ton of sense when this team's like fully healthy to be like, all right, Jaden, you initiate, right? No, it's going to be about, can he take this stuff that he's doing and apply it to that old role as well, and maybe do more within it. But again, it doesn't matter for the time being. I mean, this is going to go through the All-Star break that Randall and DiVincenzo are going to be out for. I don't know. I mean, he could just kind of reestablish himself of even where he is in the pecking order, I think, by just continuing to play like this, because it has been, I mean, for weeks now, he looks like a different player. Like you said, like a shift in mentality or something where you're like, all right, Jaden is leveled up. This is like a different level to me as I'm charting Jaden's career. I'm like, okay, now you're something more than I would have defined you as a season ago.
Jaden too, the things that he's doing are things that are very repeatable, even on lower volume. Like, it's the way he's attacking out of corners, it's playing off the catch and just being aggressive of knowing where you're trying to get to and never settling for that 3-point shot. I think that's a big thing of, he might not score 30, but if his touches, if every game when they're at full strength, you can sign up for 5 for 8, 6 for 8, and 16 points or whatever. And is a consistent threat of, the defense isn't going to leave him because they know, okay, well, if we give him any space, he's going to eat up that space and get to 10 feet and knock it down. That's going to kill us in its own way. That's going to make this offense hard to stop moving forward. Right. And it has been. This offense has been hard to stop in the NBA for the past month plus. Jade's a big part of that. I do think there's probably something too of Jaylen Clark's playing a little bit more. Jaden's playing off ball more. You can't. He might say, I do it the same either way. I play the same either way, but it's got to be exhausting guarding the other team's best player for 35 minutes. And if you can get some time not doing it, not only does that clearly have benefits for them defensively with Jaden able to play more low man, hit the glass harder, those types of things. But offensively, there's got to be a little bit more left in the tank as well, to where you're like, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to be aggressive here versus, I'm kind of exhausted. I got the ball in the corner. I'm just going to shoot it.
And I mean, how important is that just even in these games coming up right now, that you can't, when you need more offensively from Jaden, but you're playing Cleveland tonight, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland.
Interesting.
You need to guard that. You got Dame in Milwaukee for the next game. And then they play the Thunder 3 times in the next 4 games after that, to be able, and we'll talk about Jaylen Clark, later, but to be able to have this depth of guys that you can reasonably put on Donovan Mitchell and be like, okay, this is okay. The value in that is immense, I think, on the offensive side of the floor. And Jaden's a great example of that. Let me grab our first break here to let y'all know that today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company. Great place, the best place to go watch Wolves games. They have the sound on, the screens on there for every Wolves game in the tap room. And we are doing a live show, Britt Robson and I, at Falling Knife Brewing Company on February 20th. It is the last day of All-Star break, which is somehow only in 10 days. That doesn't seem exactly right. But we will be there 6 p.m. We'll do the happy hour thing. We'll do the live show at 7 p.m., kind of a reset for the final stretch of the season. Would love if you would come out on Thursday, February 20th, to hang out with us, and we'll kind of I guess we'll talk about where the Wolves are at going into the post All-Star break portion of the season. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. And if you have a home improvement need, we would love if you would consider Your Home Improvement Company. They have deals going on right now. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, 50% off your multiple window purchases. They're triple pane windows. They come with a lifetime warranty. Their other deal is 30% off bathroom renovations, simple shower to tub or tub to shower renovations, or full-on bathroom renovations, 30% off on that. The bathroom renovations are done by certified local professionals and are also backed by a lifetime warranty. Whatever the project is, Your Home Improvement Company offers great financing that requires 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2026. Contact Your Home Improvement Company by calling 866-777-YHIC or by going to yourhomeimprovementco.com. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better.
Can I just say one thing quick about Jaden? It is.
I mean, we don't have a lot else to do. We can do more Jaden and Naz.
Right. It's almost a fun contrast of, you watch Naz, and certainly it's a little different because he was getting the bulk of the defensive attention, but you see the different, like the bank he had to show basically with his handle and the shooting, obviously, to get his. And then you watch Jaden, and Jaden's move, I swear, still is just like that 2 slow, long steps, but it's just a reminder of you don't have to be able to do a million different things to score in the NBA. You can just be like, I score here and here, and I know how to get to these 2 spots. And it doesn't, and until the defense goes out of its way to take that away from you and proves that it can stop you from that, you can just keep doing what's repeatable and what works, and keep the game simple for yourself, which I think for a guy like Jaden is like, sometimes you could overcomplicate it. He seems to be totally comfortable and understanding of, this is my game and I'm going to do it. And he's just kind of soaring because of it. Comfort, I think, is a lot of it. I think he's really comfortable and confident in what he does and what he can do right now. And that matters a lot.
And, I think is related to that is like playing with teammates on the floor who understand that and are looking to empower it, and maybe because it was the lesser guys, they're playing with some of the deep bench guys, like they're looking to go to Jaden, right? They're looking to play through Naz some more and just giving them the room to be more than we expect out of them. If that's not a rip on, obviously like Ant and Julius are like good players, but if they're out there, there's just not in that game, there's just not as much Jaden, obviously just overall usage, but there's also less intention, to go to him looking for him. Like, okay, Naz is coming off of this pin down. If I'm Jaylen Clark at the top of the key and Naz is coming off of this pin down, and I also see, Ant just kind of trickling over for me to hand it off to him, like all right, Ant, I guess, and I think that intention, and part of that's like coaching, familiarity, the group, but like I do think a big part of Jaden and Naz playing well was the teammates, specific teammates that they were playing with in that game, believing that they could, and empowering them to do so. So I think that's a important piece as well.
Naz, like the team, everybody on the team has incredible confidence in Naz as an offensive player. I mean, they lost
so good.
They lost to the Wizards, and it was like, well, Naz got hurt. What do you expect from us? Literally, that was the vibe post game. It was like, well, it didn't help that Naz got hurt.
Yep.
So and Jaylen after the Portland game was like, well, Naz didn't get hurt. We had Naz this time. He's like, we didn't want to let that happen again, but we had Naz. And it's like we've heard Austin Rivers in the past, and I've heard a bunch of people privately just like, this guy is so good, at what he can do. And I'm sure they see more of these things in practice when it's like 5-on-5 or whatever, and Naz is more of a focal point of whatever lineup he's in, and they probably see the things and they're like, wow, you guys don't even know exactly what he can do out there. It's
because if you are Austin Rivers and you're like, well, I can't really guard that move when it's a 6'4" guy doing it against me, and Naz 6'10", it's just it can be completely overpowered.
I did not think you could say the Naz shooting is obviously like very real, but like the handle he showed in that game was more impressive than I would have guessed. there's just been times like where sometimes he, like you said, going to the basket and whatnot, it gets a little out of control. And I think that's where you go, well, yeah, he's a big guy. What do you expect? Like, but then the control that he had, like the ball was kind of on a string for various points of that game. And that was maybe some of the most impressive ball handling I've ever seen from him.
Right. I guess just to wrap it up, let's do the cute Jaden and Naz are also good friends, which I do think is actually, tied to them getting the opportunity and playing as well as they did last night, but or the other night. I asked Naz about it after the game.
You and Jaden don't often get the opportunity to kind of be like the main two guys, taking the shots. Is that just kind of cool, like on a personal level, that you two kind of got to run this one?
Yeah, that's dope, man. It's, especially that's like, we're best friends, so it's like for both of us to see, and then for him to get 30, I'm super hyped about it. I'm on the free throw line, I'm like, you better get 30, like you better get 30. So it's like just moments like that, it's fun.
And I asked Finch about that after the game too, Jace. You're there. Just like it is a cool, also like putting in the work story, right? These guys have been here every summer. That's what Finch, talked about. And I don't think Jaden always gets enough credit for that, for how much time he spends here and is dedicated to it. Just since we've been doing it, right? It's oftentimes the guys that don't make a lot of money who stay in Minnesota over the summer. They're fighting for, a spot, and, smart move. And that was Naz, right? He's a two-way guy on a minimum contract for a long time, and he's stays living in Minnesota and working at the facility. But Jaden has done that the whole time while being a first-round pick, while being a guy who signed an extension for over $100 million. And just like stayed about the work. And Jaden is such a quiet player, doesn't person, at least when we're talking to him, doesn't really talk about himself in the way that some players do. And it's that's always been like a commendable thing. I think about it. It's just the work that he puts in. I'm not saying got to do the work like in Minnesota, but he was the guy who was a kind of franchise piece who was working at the facility over the summer with Naz Reid, Nate Knight, Luka Garza, Jaylen Clark, like those players. That's I don't know, that matters too.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is still a guy who still does it. I mean, still does it now after you get the contract, and you still largely do it. That's amazing. That's not something that somebody who has Jaden's contract does.
Right.
At least that I know of league wide. Not
with the Wolves. We haven't seen that.
Right.
I can't think of one at least.
It is like he kind of, you talk about the reserved and stuff. It's like I think he's a pretty guy who just likes simple things, like got my structure, got my routine, whatever. Like, I'll stay here. That's fine. And you talk about the best friend thing. Anybody on the team will tell you that, like, as far as in the locker room, Jaden and Naz are the best friends of any. Like, there's no two players who are better friends than those two are, and that's been the case for a while. But that was a very genuine connection. It used to be like, oh, this guy and this guy are friends. Then you hear about it's like, yeah, kind of, I guess. But those two are like very good friends.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, as people, that had to be cool for them, on Saturday night as friends to like be like, yeah, we were the two main guys. And we won a game when we're missing, four of our top players.
And everybody else had enjoyed, I think, galvanizing behind it, frankly.
That's a good point.
Like you saw even the guys in the game, and then everybody's tweeted out that clip of like Ant and Julius like running off the bench or whatever midway through the fourth. Like, it's like everybody has fun seeing those two succeed, and that matters too.
Yeah, they're just likable people from their teammates, and I would say to the extent that we know them too, just likable guy. I mean, Jaden's very quiet, but like the type of person that you get why the teammates respect them as much as they do. Let's do point guard a little bit, because I think that's like an immediate, what's going to kind of go on here. Could be a swing, right, over these next few games. We're talking about some of those good guards that they're playing, just tough teams.
Good teams.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest factor. Rob Dillingham gets the start on Saturday against Portland with Mike Conley out. And again, I don't know with the Mike injury. I just wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a handful of games or a couple games that
pretty confident won't be tonight. He's not playing tonight. Yeah.
I do think Mike is like the type of guy who would, as soon as he can kind of like find a way to cobble it together to make it work. So I don't know, maybe the swelling's down and that happens tonight. The point isn't who's going to start tonight and play. It's this. There's just been a point guard question all season, and Mike Conley started the season so slow, and Rob Dillingham was given a small role. He's done things sometimes when the role swells to 15, 18 minutes in a game. But then also times when the role has been 15 to 18 minutes, you're like, he wasn't playing in a way that suggested he should have been, more than that. He's a rookie player acclimating to the NBA at the size that he is. There's no Dante DiVincenzo, who is this team's or was this team's starting point guard before he came. So I'm just, whether it's injuries or opportunity, I'm just interested to chart how they handle the point guard position going forward. I'll let you get in here, but the one other thing I have thinking too is how much do they need to be playing a point guard? Have they grown in their comfort with Nikhil, being the primary guy running the actions, or Ant doing it too, as we talk about, maybe Jaylen Clark having earned a spot in the rotation permanently. At whose minutes does that come at the expense of? And point guard would be a position where I don't think Conley or Dillingham are excelling at it. And you would wonder, okay, is this a place where you can, create some room for other guys who are playing by, sliding things around now? So that's whatever, just loosely setting up the point guard position where you're at. You're on that as we kind of enter the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, I think between now and the break, it's if Ant's back, they will lean into Ant. As in terms of like being the initiator. A lot of times, even when Rob's on the court, there'll be a good chunk of minutes where he plays off ball, and Ant will just kind of be the initiator and run whatever action, and they'll live with it, whatever they get to. Because Rob is a decent like off ball option, decent good shooter, can attack.
Those are the best ones. Those are the best.
I agree. Otherwise, it gets a little sticky, pick and rolly, and you're like, all right, that was 15, 16 seconds of dribbling. Which makes sense too. Like that's probably what he's done a lot of his life. That's what a lot of point guards do a lot of their lives until they get to this level because it works. So I think they'll lead a lot into Ant. If Ant does miss more time, I'd be a little surprised. But if he did miss more time, then I don't know. I'm kind of like thinking back of how they even got through the Washington game. And just Nikhil brought it up, Rob brought it up.
Little Jingle and Joe Ingles.
There was a lot of actions. It was a pretty structured approach for a lot of that game. And then by the end of the game, I was like, Naz, you can bring it up. That's fine. So it's kind of a hodgepodge, and I don't think that's a way to get through a season. But I do think it's a way you can get through periods of time. Because, if you got into like a playoff series and you're doing that, then teams would be like, all right, we're going to put this guy on you and we're going to harass you all the way up the court. Like if you got a playoff matchup and Nikhil's bringing it up the court, they're going to put their pest on him and they're going to be like, this is either going to take him 7 to 8 seconds to get it past half court or they're going to turn it over. But for now, I think it's pretty doable at this point in the year to just kind of have whoever bring it up and get into stuff. And as long as you have it pretty structured as to what you're trying to get to, which they definitely did against Portland. Yeah, I think you can get by with it. And Rob, like you said, some like in those 18-minute stretches, there will be like 7 minutes where you're like, that was really good. And then there will be 8 minutes where you're like, it's really struggling, and that is just to be expected. He's 20, he's a rookie, whatever. I'm still not in the camp of just 30 and deal with it because I'm still looking at this team of like, it's not a bad team. They can still do things this season. And I don't think that Rob's going to be like, oh, if you let him play through it now, then come playoffs, it'll be 30 minutes and leading the team to glory. I kind of like him in just this X factor role for now. But out of necessity, probably is going to play like 20 as long as Mike's out.
What do you think about this? So I think going into the season or even earlier on in the season, I was like, Rob and Naz, that would really, that would make sense as a parent. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe don't you feel like both Rob and Mike, when they're at the point, are best with Rudy out there or have been? Like I get in theory the Naz and Rob thing, and not even just in theory. Like I'm almost certain that will come in time. Yeah,
and we've seen sometimes where like the pick and pop, either Rob gets up with a pretty open lane or Naz gets the pop. But I think defensively, I think they find it pretty critical to have Rudy out there with Rob, which I totally understand.
I'm putting my finger on that side of the weight a little bit.
Yeah,
there too. But offensively, right? I mean, it's not like Rudy and
Rob
has
like some nice feeds to Rudy too. Yeah, like their pick and roll game has been pretty solid. And as far as like if you're trying to develop somebody, like I think learning the pick and roll is pretty valuable. And the pick and pop is like the easy thing that you can always just roll back to. Naz playing pick and pop with Naz is playing basketball in easy mode. So I understand that, but defensively, I think it's pretty imperative that Rudy's out there. And yeah, Rob and Rudy, I think, have shown a little bit of maybe a growing chemistry on that. It's not always perfect, but there have been some good instances where it's like, all right, Rob just made a pass to Rudy that a lot of guys haven't made this year that probably should be made. So that, yeah.
With the defensive coverage that Rudy can provide for him. And do we think for Mike that his best point guarding minutes come next to Rudy as well? Right.
I mean, the Mike Rudy pick and roll still works.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. And those two clearly still have that comfort, especially as Mike. It looks like he's been healthier these past couple of weeks. That's why the finger thing was unfortunate, because it looked like he has more juice back in him. I think I see that more on the defensive end. I think the Wolves are back to the point of like, please try Mike. Please try Mike defensively. We're in the beginning of the year. It was like, well, anybody can go by Mike Conley. I mean, that was frankly the reality there for a month of the season. And that was the hardest part to watch. It's like, forget the shooting. Like defensively, he's just not providing any resistance. And now he is. But offensively, those two in the pick and roll between Mike popping or just, running. A lot of times Mike does the Rajon Rondo. I'm dribbling under the hoop and cycling back out and seeing what anybody else is doing. But it's all off Rudy pick and roll. And Rudy gets a lot out of that too. So I still think that is a solid action. That when everybody's healthy, when they have minutes where maybe it's just Julius out there, whatever, and Ant's on the bench, that's a good thing for them to turn to. I kind of agree. Naz can play with anybody, and Naz can play on the court as a spacer for all of that too.
Absolutely. It doesn't need to be one or the other. I was just thinking about kind of these fourth quarter pushes. When you look at the Houston game and they go with Naz at the 5 and it's just that the Naz at the 5 faster. We're going to play offense lineups have been dominant, in more recently. And while playing that way, they're not afraid to have Nikhil, kind of going to be the one. And even if it's like Nikhil and Ant at the 1 and 2 there, they're like, oh, this is plenty for us to be able to initiate at the, to get into whatever we're trying to get into. So it's all, I'd say this all to being like, I'm thinking of, there's the Rudy minutes, right? And that's 32 or whatever a night. And those can be Conley and Dillingham minutes. And then there's the 16 minutes a night where Rudy isn't out there. And what are you trying to get to in those minutes? It'd be nice, I think, for the Play Rob Moore crew, if he could really fold effectively into those smaller ball lineups and be part of that. We're running, we're scoring, and we're going to, be active on defense, but we're going to give up some size. I think you want to see him get into that. But it's where you come back to the defensive part where you're like, well, we're already pretty thin in a front court of, Reid and McDaniels at the 5 and the 4, or even like Reid and Clark at the 5 and the 4. You want that, your point guard to be able to hold up a little better. I mean, they switched the matchups in the Blazers game where Dillingham was guarding Simons in the first half. And then the second half, they had to put him on Kamara. And they decided to put Jaden back on, Simons there. It's just another way of saying there's limitations to Rob defensively, and that's fine. That's the truth of it right now. What are the best places to let him do his thing offensively without getting exposed defensively? I think that's all tied together and part of just this overall point guard. I don't want to call it a conundrum because I think they have a lot of different options, but like those are the questions and puzzle pieces it seems like Finch is trying to solve at that position.
It's almost boring when players mention it, but they talk about playing with pace and stuff, and they're like, well, it starts with getting stops. When you can defend, when you can get stops, almost anybody can play point guard, because then it is just so simple bringing the ball up the court and searching for transition opportunities, or just bringing it up with a little pace, and now it's easier to get into your action and you have more time to get into it too. So the crispness of it isn't as imperative. So yeah, that's where it's a little bit tough of like, well, yeah, Rob, we want to get out there, play fast and whatnot. It's okay. That's harder to do if you're pulling the ball out of the hoop, which to his credit, like they haven't really been destroyed defensively too often when he's out there. I'm not saying that's like because of him, but it's not like Rob's out there, the other team's going to score every possession. That doesn't happen either. But yeah, it's the balance of, it's easy to play fast with like Nikhil, oftentimes when he's at the point guard, assuming they are getting stops because they have these hyper defensive lineups out there, which, yeah, when they have Jaylen, Jaden, and Nikhil, they're getting a lot of stops. I think that the defensive rating of that 3-man is like 90.
I mean, the transition opportunities in that have to be up too, because more deflections equals more transition equals, better offense there. Even if you wouldn't be like those three guys as a trio are a good offensive group. It can be a good or at least passable offensive group.
Yeah,
I mean, defense like that.
Yeah, particularly, you don't need any shooting or anything, frankly, when you're just getting like turnovers and deflections and getting out on the break, which
Right.
that's what's looked more like last year's Wolves of late, is the segments where it's so suffocating, and whether it's through rebounds and outlets or oftentimes turnovers into fast breaks, it's these flurries where you're like, what was the offense? It's like, well, I don't know. It was largely the defense, and the defense was the offense, and that can so often be a solution. It was last year for this team, and it has been of late. I really do think they've kind of centered more in on the identity of the team they were a year ago, this last however long.
And you were to that finding that identity piece. You were kind of asking some of the players in Finch after the game if Jaylen Clark's introduction into the rotation has helped, some of that identity kind of sink back in for the reasons we were just talking about: more deflections, more defense, more generating offense through transition or semi-transition opportunities because of the defense that they have. I just wanted to, talk about Jaylen Clark a little bit, why he's worked. And I think your theory there is part of the reason behind it, but also just Finch's willingness to go to this, stick with it, and kind of just the job he's done cobbling together the back end of the rotation since Randall and DiVincenzo have been out, mainly through Jaylen Clark. And I just think it's interesting that Finch has been cobbling it together, right? And the way he's been cobbling it together off the bench is by going a little bit more defense first, by having
what everybody was calling for, right? They were just like, don't worry about spacing, blah, blah, blah. We just need more defense.
Yeah,
maybe the least obvious answer proved to be the right one, which is kind of wild.
I mean, so I saw you you tweeted out an article from years ago about Finch cobbling it together when the Wolves were just decimated by COVID in that stretch. It's been an interesting year for Finch just from a cobbling it together standpoint, when first 30-40 games of the season, no cobbling, 8 starters,
right.
Those are the guys that are playing now, being forced into what, as we understand it to be, are his roots as a coach of, whether it's being the G or overseas, of kind of necessarily.
Yeah, overseas guys are coming and going just like they are in the G League. You just, it's
that's a skill set of Finch's. That's in his bag that has been established from what he's done at stops previously. And we've seen, right, situationally in the league with the Wolves too.
Yeah, it's just, okay, who do we have tonight? What are their strengths? What's the game plan? Like, one thing the Wolves have always been good at, and documented this a few times last year, is the opponent. Like, what do they have? Who do they have out? Okay, so who do we take away out of that group? Like, they game to game defensively have always been a team that game plans far more for the opponent than a lot of teams we've seen on a night-to-night basis of they're just doing what they always do. Like, if you've got a player who can beat it, you're going to beat us tonight. Minnesota is more of, and it's sometimes it's been a little more tricky with Rudy, but they've kind of realized, they have to be more malleable there too. And Rudy's kind of realized that. And I think it's been a lot of discussions that have to go back and forth. And Finch even talked about that after the Portland game. I think it was your question of like, hey, okay, but we have to be able to do these different things. And that's been an ongoing discussion, but it's being willing to be flexible in terms of what you're going to do, who you're going to go to, how you're going to change the lineup. And people were frustrated with that earlier in the season, but like you said, it's like nobody got hurt. So it's just like, it's what do you do? Who do you just take the minutes away from, even though it's not necessarily their fault or their fault or their fault? And it's like, now you're out or you're playing less, even though you are an established NBA player who should obviously be playing.
Do you think in hindsight that he should have been playing different players back then?
I just want to know. I just really wanted, like, who would you have taken out? Or who would you have stopped playing more? Like would you have taken guys? People would have taken it from Dante, and just before he got hurt, Dante was incredible. So it's like sometimes you have to let guys play through it. I mean, I know everybody else will just don't play Julius. Like Julius played pretty long, contributed to some wins, especially late. And there is also a thing of you have to let new guys who come in and are adjusting to new things play through struggles. So I don't know. Like, this was a very weird thing of you have these new players who are good, and they were traded the 2 days before media day in training camp, and there was an adjustment period there. And Mike, don't think he was at 100%. And all of these things. And so then do you push these other guys in and move these other guys out, or do you show the patience that they have probably earned? That was a
Mike and Julius. It's Mike and Julius.
Yeah.
And so the question was,
Dante was bad at the start of the year too, and people were like, "This guy stinks."
Yeah, I guess I thought that one was just obvious.
So did I. But there's a lot of people who didn't. You know, when you're like, "Wow, this guy's turned over for the fifth time tonight."
It really work. You know, I don't know. Like, is it process over result? Like, I agree with the process, but the results of that, you know, weren't great. But maybe the results were just never going to be great. To your point, when you make a trade.
I mean, it's the exact same. This is the exact same thing as like a trade deadline thing, where we just talked about this last week. Of Rudy comes in and it takes a while. Kyrie comes in with Luka and it was terrible, and then the next year they're in the West Finals. Like, it is an ever thing of balancing act of like, it's as bad through 30 games. It's like, well, guess what's post trade deadline? Like 30 games. A lot of teams don't figure it out then either, and I don't think there's this automatic thing of it will. But there's also a idea of you have to give it time too. So yeah, I don't know. But I think it matters a lot that when the opportunity did arise, like the right buttons were pushed. So I think it's pretty clear in my mind that when we see it, it's like, he knows the roster. He knows what guys are capable of doing. He knows who's good and who fits where, because as soon as like the opportunity opens up, and you can say that he should open it up himself. But as soon as the opportunity did open up, he kind of seemed to know what buttons to press to get this winning result.
So now, once that opportunity that's opened up slowly like gets filled back in, have you thought about that much? Like, it does seem like Jaylen Clark will continue to play, right?
I think he will. Yeah.
I mean, played 33 minutes.
I think what they have found, and this is like talking to other people, because nobody was really biting on my did Jaylen reinstill the defensive identity of the team.
But I like the question. I like there's
that was a good angle. But the answer when I talk to more people is not like this. Oh yeah, he's lighting the fire. It was very much he can take on the point of attack, and Jaden McDaniels can then do the other things that can make us a consistently great defense. You know, like he can like blow up things at the rim or whatever, because he doesn't have to be that point of attack guy at all times. And frankly, like there's probably a lot to that. You know, like we're just basically like we're unlocking Jaden McDaniels on that end of the court and not putting him in this box. That is a very important box to check. But you know, it just now Jaden can cover up a lot of holes versus just one guy. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And again, that is like something that they made a read on and figured out, you know, and that's where Jaylen Clark, I think, will guaranteed stay in, because you were able to do that more often. And I think they found like it's not always about like Rudy being this guy who is our ultimate Swiss Army knife now defensively, because he's not exactly the same defensive player. He's just not. But Jaden can be. So I think maybe they're leaning more into that.
Yeah, and the rebounding is a huge proof is in the pudding of that. Off ball equals, you know, I mean, and he needed to rebound better on ball. I get some of that some of his rebounding numbers early on were just way too low, regardless of where you're standing on the floor. But this team has improved rebounding in a fairly immense way over the last 6 weeks. And a big part of that is Jaden's rebounding numbers. You go like, okay, why are they about? Okay, where's the change in the rebounding percentages? Oh, McDaniels is up. Why is McDaniels up? Oh, he's in a different position. I mean, this is a very logical conclusion, you know, to come to. So provided that those things, defense and rebounding and the things that have been leading to winning recently remain important, it would feel weird to pull that Jaylen Clark piece out of it.
Isn't that also like there are going to be a lot of Julius Naz front court minutes? It feels like if you can have Jaylen Clark out there and Jaden out there with whoever else is the fifth guy, and now Jaden can contribute a lot to the interior issues, whether like be low man rebounding, whatever things where you are slightly deficient, and that lineup can just like, you know, Julius and Naz, like it was a pretty effective offensively too. You know, I just think it solves a lot of problems, and
I just do think it's going to create another problem, whether it's practical or not, with the rotation who's playing.
I agree. Because it might be an entirely new equation.
It might be Rob Dillingham. Again,
I think it's likely going to be Rob. What do you?
Yeah,
I think that's almost. I would like almost book that. They're going to play 9 when everybody's healthy, and Jaylen Clark's going to be the 9th guy.
Yeah, I was just trying to do my this equals that equals that equals just like heads up. You know?
Might not
be
right
because of those.
And for this year's team, that makes sense, you know, and I think
or Rob, like maybe there's more games.
there's a runway
know,
here. You're right. The runway is not up.
And Rob just hasn't played that well the last couple games. Not terribly. Like we said, love him in that. I actually like him next to Ant. Like you do that, then it's one guy to beat. I mean, how many times is Rob? It's like runway to the basket, you know, and it's that's a product of a shifted defense loaded up that's concerned about Ant or concerned about Rudy on the roll. Like Rob can be a productive piece in this. I'm just saying there's going to be a time when everybody's healthy where you go, do we want the 18 minutes a night scoring backup point guard, or do you want whatever Jaylen Clark is, to be those 18 minutes a night? And I don't know, maybe to the cobbling it together point, or asking yourself, what is the opponent in this given game, demand? Maybe there will be some optionality, but between the two of them, Rob has more opportunity here. If Mike doesn't play tonight, I would assume, he starts or plays more. Maybe if Ant plays and Conley sits, Nickeil starts at the 1, and Rob will still get opportunity. So let's see what he does there. It is kind of shaping up in my head a path to maybe Dillingham's out of the rotation, and we're doing this thing where like, wait, the guy on a 2-way is playing 18 minutes a night and Rob Dillingham isn't playing at all. I could see that happening.
Yeah, 100%. And because this team at its best, for sure, right now, as currently constructed, is similar to last year in that it's a bunch of guys who are just like MFing the opponent every possession, like we're going to be in your grill, whatever, make life super difficult, lead to transition the other way. And now we just 12-0 flurried you, and now you have to come back against a really good defensive team. Like that is still the best version of this team this year. And Jaylen contributes a lot to that. And a lot of it is through his own defense and, just freeing up Jaden to be a menace on that end in ways that weren't previously possible. So that all plays into it. And that is where I would give Finch credit again of like, it's a 2-way player. And it was not so there's not like the status thing. And there was literally no public pressure to play Jaylen Clark. And yeah, that's the direction he went, when it was not going to be like probably the most popular of like, oh, finally he's doing this when nobody asked for that. But it's just like these guys see these guys in practice every day. They see what guys can do. They know the players. Like, I'm not saying that he always employs them all perfectly. Certainly doesn't. No coach does. But has clearly, I think, a good read on his own team and what is be done. And maybe there are nights where he probably doesn't do what maybe is like required to win that game, but there are probably reasons for that too. Of like I said earlier in the year, of like sometimes you probably had to give a lot of these guys some grace too. Of like, well, let's let them work through it and see where it goes.
I think semi-related to that is the proposition of Naz starting once Julius comes back. And to your point about Finch, of like knowing what putting a certain player into the rotation or in with one group does, like the impacts of that across the 5-man lineup, there is becoming a significantly stronger case for Naz Reid that what he provides within those groups is more powerful and impactful. And both of us have kind of been like change our tune a little bit on Julius. Like he was actually helping in a pretty real way, before he got hurt and for an extended period of time before he got hurt. It does, to me, just from a basketball standpoint, feel like it could make sense to be like, yeah, let's get that same version of Julius Randle back, but within like the second unit that still is the first guy. I mean, this is the classic 6-man. Like, I'm kind of, if we could just strip away like the politics of it and not think about it, and just be like, wouldn't it be kind of awesome if this version of this Wolves team right now that's going to play the Cavs tonight, and Ant's going to start, and he's going to be the main guy there. Naz is going to play with him, one pass win. It's going to be Rudy, and the floor is going to be opening up, and then we're going to be 8 minutes into the first quarter, and the Wolves have a lead. Wouldn't it be kind of awesome to bring Julius Randle in right there instead of Jaylen Clark, maybe, or whoever it might, over Luka Garza,
right?
No shade to Luka, but like, I think the Julius weapon off the bench could be like kind of the difference, and part of it is the Naz piece. Just to me, with that starting group, that you're going to have Rudy out there and you're going to have Ant out there. Just with those two, Naz, that piece there to me is a great fit, even if the Julius one's like doing good, right? Like. I think they have to consider that when the time comes back.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a basketball perspective, it's made sense for pretty much the whole season, right? But the politics do matter, and that's where I think it's much more palatable now. Of like, if you're Julius Randle, I think it's much easier to have that conversation with Julius Randle of like, especially if Naz can just keep playing well,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
like
That's
feeling like this, and then it's like, hey, he's really cooking. You know, like he's been really good in the starting lineup. We certainly love you. Like we'll close a lot, games with you. Like, hey, you and Naz might close a lot of games. Who knows? We'll see. We'll still definitely get you high 20s, whatever minutes. But we just don't really want to like disturb what we have going here with Naz in the starting lineup, Julius. And I think even for a player and everybody, it could be like, I understand that. Like, I don't love to hear whatever. I view myself as a starter, but that makes sense. I think that's a lot easier than when you come in to the NBA or something, to a new team and go, hey, you're coming off the bench. What? Like that's never been who I've been. I think if Naz plays this well, and there's a lot of evidence there where there were a lot of times early in the year where Naz wasn't playing that great. And you can say, well, that would fix a lot of problems, but it's harder to be like, he's not playing well, but neither are you, and we think he's going to fix the problem. So he's going to start over you. I just think if Naz can play well, that's a conversation that can much more easily be had without maybe necessarily having like all these ripple effects.
I don't know enough about a abductor strain to know like if that's one of those where like when you're back,
they're Googling it in Dallas right now. Yeah.
It's so sorry. But could it be
the ease in? You're saying, yeah.
I don't know. Like some injuries, they do that. I remember. I think it was the 20.
You could tell a player you're doing it no matter what, right?
Yeah. But sometimes an injury, from your medical staff is like no minute restriction. If for the first 4 games we're capping them at 22 or whatever, it might be. And if there is a minute restriction, that would just make sense for even if you had Julius as your like, nope, he's still number 1 in the power forward pecking order. Well, you should bring him off the bench if he has a minute restriction, just so you can manage that a little bit more effectively. So I say that just to be like, I'm curious to see if that plays out exactly like that, because you'd be like, okay, well, here you go. Got to see what it looked like with Naz starting and Julius off the bench. And, like hand raised here too. Like I was not the guy at the beginning of the season being like, they should start Naz. I wasn't. My whole thought process on Naz going into the season, I said many times, was I don't think there was they need to start Naz problem. There was they need to play Naz more minutes problem. They have played Naz more minutes problem. I just think Naz is better than he was a year ago. Like, or I don't know. I'm at least seeing him be able to do more things, as we talked about for the first 25 minutes of this episode. Like, it would also make sense if he's still improving. He was 24 last year when he won 6-man leader.
And what do we always said? Like, Naz is the one guy in the NBA where we're like, every single year he comes back, I'm like, oh, he's better at this now. He's better at this now. Like, like that's, when it was like re-signing him and whatnot, it's like, this guy's never stopped doing this. Like, he's never stopped descending on this, exponential growth curve. It's amazing. And you see like, oh, wow, he was doing this other stuff too, and he probably just wasn't able to show it or whatever. And to Naz's credit, after that Portland game, he goes, yeah, I get it. Like, I'm on a really good team. Like, you have to wait your turn. Like, and it was great perspective on that too. Of just not a guy who's like, I've been saying it. It was like, I get it. Our team's really good. Like you got to wait. You got to do what you're asked to do and whatnot. And then when your opportunity comes, you got to be ready. And it has come, and he's been ready. And if he continues that, I think there's a world where it all just kind of sorts itself out.
Let's wrap this up with some prize picks, Jace. They do have this is for the Wolves Cavs game that I have up right now, but just kind of to the like the Jaden and Naz point of it. Jaden's number for tonight against Cleveland is 14.5 points. Rebounds is 6.5 rebounds, more or less than 1.5 made threes. And then also Naz Reid, his numbers are up a little bit. I'll find those here too. 18.5 points, more or less on that. More or less than 7 rebounds. Too, that just like kind of looking at that, I was like, man, I would guess Naz more than 7 rebounds tonight. And I probably guess Jaden has more than 6.5 rebounds himself. I didn't send you any prize pick stuff, but did you have anything that you looked at before that you liked, Jace?
Donovan Mitchell at his points and rebounds number, he just clears that a lot. And then I wrote down Naz points because, ride the wave. But you already obviously had the Naz one in there. You can't play Naz's points and Naz's rebounds. You can play it together as one thing.
So are you saying this Donovan points plus rebounds one?
Rebounds plus assists, 9.
Rebounds plus assists, 9. Yeah.
And then I put down Naz points, but then we can't play both, which is fine.
What would you like better? What do you think is more likely? Naz having more than 18.5 points tonight or having more than 7 rebounds? The double big. I guess I don't know. That could
doesn't that mean it for both of them? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Yeah.
This will be interesting if they put like Evan Mobley on him is a
dude.
That's a good test. Like he can move a little bit too. Like that.
He can move a lot of it. Yeah.
It's not only like, okay, maybe some added defensive attention. There won't be if it's what will be interesting is if Ant plays, Cleveland kind of loads up against him, and then they put Mobley on Naz. So Naz, it's like, hey, you got one, largely, but it's Evan Mobley. What can you do with that? That will probably be a big indicator for what the Wolves can do.
I'm just curious to see how they guard the Wolves. Like, do you like what do you do? Are you switching that with Ant and pick and roll, like switching Mobley onto him? I mean, it'll be like
guarding
Strus.
Strus, yeah, right.
Like that is Cleveland's weakness is not having
an A1 stopper. Yeah,
not at all. And Strus is.
I'm assuming Hunter's not starting. I mean, I think they'll start Strus the rest of the way anyway.
You're right. I haven't. I watched one of their games.
Hunter hasn't played
before
yet,
the deadline.
Yeah,
I didn't. I don't know if he played. I didn't watch their most recent game because
he did not.
The Wizards. Oh, I was like, I'm not going to watch this. But yeah, so it'd be, I mean, to that end, if I was feeling like Ant was for sure going to like play and was good, it was coming off, I would maybe be like, I'd like Ant to have more than 30 tonight. But that's what those of you listeners who have a Prize Picks account could choose. You could choose your own adventure here on Prize Picks, prizepicks.com, Prize Picks app. If you want to create an account, use the promo code Dane. That will get your account credited with a $50 sign-up bonus when you place your first $5 lineup. Anything else we missed at all, Jace, or are we good?
I don't think so. I'm good.
Awesome. I appreciate you doing it. What we got? Yeah, I'll see you. Is it Wednesday? The Wolves play the Bucks at Target Center. They have the Cavs tonight. For listeners, the plan will be on Tuesday morning, tomorrow morning. Chris Hine and I will talk about what goes down in Wolves Cavs. We'll probably have an ownership, or we will have an ownership update by then, as I understand it. So we'll talk about that tomorrow as well, and then we keep going through the rest of this week till we have the All-Star break and take a little bit of time off. You guys can read Jace Frederick at twincities.com and the Pioneer Press. Follow him on Twitter at Jace Frederick. Appreciate you doing it, man.
Hey, thanks, man. Always fun.
Until Tuesday morning with Chris Hine. He's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.